Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to
Morning,
another
morning.
Monday morning high five. We are in the book of Judges, chapter 9. We're going to look at verses 1 through 6. The book of Judges has some interesting stories, just very
That's what I
interesting.
was gonna say, man. Like I know there are certain, stories in the Bible that get preached on a lot,
hmm
but if you read like the rest of the stuff that doesn't get preached on, I think you would find it interesting.
yeah, interesting stories. So, the heading for chapter 9, this first part is Abimelech's conspiracy. Abimelech's conspiracy. So, short, quick version, the summary version. Abimelech is one of Gideon, aka Jerubbaal's sons. He's n- so it looks like he was the one son that had, well, the way they phrase it, he was the one son that had a different mother. His mother was one of Gideon's concubines, and so uh interestingly enough, Abimelech, his name means son of a king, son of a
Mm.
king. So even though Gideon kind of was like, no, I don't want to be king, God should be king, he names his son son of a king. And we immediately see Abimelech, aka son of the king, acting like the son of a king, thinking, okay, I need to make a power move. There's all these other people who have a right to the throne that Gideon was never on, but I'm going to
Mhm.
seize it. And so he goes to his mother's relatives, his mother's family, and he has them kind of spread this secret like, hey, listen, would you rather some other people lead, rule over you, Gideon's other sons, or someone someone who's your family, your flesh and blood? Like, I'll do it. I'll be the new ruler. And they, they decide, okay, I get, yeah, okay, we'll follow you. They give Abimelech 70 pieces of silver. He hires some other people to follow him. They go to his father's house and they kill all but one of his 70 brothers, all but one of them. And after they have basically slaughtered the rest of, that side of the family, they make him king. His people make him the king. And so that's kind of where we'll end for today. But we'll see the whole affair how it plays out. But
Mhm.
yeah, so do you want to start us off, Rich?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, like I say, interesting, very interesting story. One of the things is you were talking, I had just thought about how they wanted Gideon to be their king,
Mm-hmm.
and like he declined.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they're hearing the son who wants to be their king. Like, well, we couldn't get Gideon. Maybe he's the
Right.
next best thing, you know?
Right. Right.
And it just, what stood out to me was verse 3, where it talks about, like the mother spoke into the ears of all these leaders. Like she kind of put it in their ear what not Gideon, what Abimelech wanted them to know, that he could, he would take over as king. So she was the one kind of, hey, Abimelech would like to be king. He can eliminate all the other brothers and it'll just be him. And I think that'll be better. Like, putting that in their ears. And it says their hearts were inclined to what was being said. Like their hearts were open to what was being said. But when you think about what was being said, like it was wrong. Basically, what was being said is, I'm going to kill all my brothers and you'll just have to worry about me. Like I'll be king, so that you don't have to worry about the other 69 or 70 brothers trying to rule together. Like it'll just be me. I can get rid of them. And it says their hearts were inclined to that message. And I know kind of maybe what you're thinking, like, oh, that's terrible. Why would they ever, agree to that, or why would they be okay with that? But
Terrible.
in our what you saying?
That's terrible. Charles Barkley. That's terrible.
Right, right. And we think like, why would they be okay with that? Um, but like the same way that they were open to their hearts were inclined and open to this plan that is bad, is the same way our hearts and our minds are inclined to things that are bad today also. They may not look like this as far as killing 70, or 69 brothers, but it's the same concept. Like we hear things that our flesh wants to hear, that our flesh says is good for us. And we don't really think about the results, the consequences from it, but we're like, yeah, like that sounds good. That feels good. I want that. And that's just our hearts, and they become inclined to it, which basically it's open and it's acceptable now. What,
Mm,
ordinarily would be looked at as bad is now okay, because that pleases my flesh, like that's cool. It's okay. Let's do that.
right,
Sounds like a deal. All right.
right.
Um so yeah, that verse, and I think just the wording of that verse kind of stood out to me. It says, "In their hearts, um, incline like to follow," basically what he had said, the message that was being heard or placed in them. Their hearts were inclined to it, and it works both ways. In a lot of cases, if it's a good message and your hearts are inclined to it, like that's typically what we hope for when we're teaching, when pastor is preaching. He's hoping our hearts are inclined to hearing the word and accepting that. But the same way that our hearts can be inclined and open to accepting the message, the gospel, the good word, good news, it can also work the other way also. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, um, like the tail end of that, it says, "For they said he is our brother." Right, and then
mhm.
going into verse 4, the one I was looking at, it says, "So they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal Berith, with which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless fellows who followed him." So 70 pieces of silver, we'll see that come up again in the New Testament. That's the same amount that Judas received, was 70 pieces of silver. Um, but then so the tail end of 3, it tells us why the family kind of followed Abimelech, because they said, well, I mean, he's family, right? Like, well, I mean, there's this family tied to him. But then the next verse, you have worthless and reckless fellows. And apparently the only reason they followed is because he was paying. Is because, it was a business opportunity. They didn't care what they had
Yeah.
to do to get the money. I mean, just thinking about it, like, you can fast forward, it's almost, uh, very similar to the story of Judas and Jesus. Like, didn't really think, "Well, what is this money actually gonna do? What is what's gonna be the outcome of this?" Um what am I gonna have to do to get it? Right? And for Judas, it probably just
Mhm.
seems simple. Like, oh yeah, I'll point him out. Like you having difficulty figuring out which one he is. Oh, I'll point him out. Doesn't seem so bad. Um,
Yeah.
and you can only imagine how these people justified, okay, we're gonna kill just random innocent people. Like they haven't done anything wrong to us. They haven't, it doesn't even say that the other brothers had any concern for trying to be king, wanted to be king.
Right.
Nothing. Like we don't know what they were thinking, what they were trying to do. All we know is Abimelech saw them as obstacles. He saw them like they are in the way. We need to take them out. And so he gets some people, and like you, just that wording of worthless and reckless fellows, just some people who just, I mean, if you're paying, I'm playing. It don't even matter what the game is. If you're paying, I'm playing. And we were
Mhm,
talking like I think on some level we want to look at this and go, oh, I mean, that's that Old Testament. Like you would never see that. People aren't like that today. Like people wouldn't, no one would just do something like that today, just some craziness. But you know, when you look, it's man, like it seems like people would do even worse without any money, just because, So
yeah,
it's crazy how and I mean just we always have to go back to the context of Judges. Is just the reason we see most of what we see happen in Judges is because people are doing what they think is right in their own estimation. Like it's not
mhm,
about, well, what does God say? What is God's will? What does he think should be done or should happen in this situation? It's about
mhm,
what do I want? And like you were explaining, like what feels good to me? What decision makes me most, feel like, yeah, I like that one. So, if I want to be king, you know what? I mean, yeah, a little murder. I mean, a little, couple counts of murder, but I get to be king, like it seems like a fair trade-off, like
yeah.
counts of murder, but I get to be king. It just seems like it makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, just worthless and reckless fellows. And like you said, it's I guess just one simple practical point, like we you would hope we would not become or act or just allow ourselves to be categorized as just worthless and reckless people, just God's looking from heaven going, man, Eric is he's worthless and reckless. I mean, doing
yeah,
whatever, just down there, just doing whatever. Like that's
mhm,
that's a tough that's a tough descriptor, like just worthless and reckless. But
yeah.
yeah, well, I it's yeah. We could. Was there anything else you would say?
Uh, no, the only other thing not sure if I said it correct, but one of the youngest son, he was one who didn't get killed.
Right, right,
Says he hit himself, so it was killed 68. Uh, yeah, because he had 70,
right.
not including himself. So it would be 68 brothers that he killed. Yeah. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, yeah. Abimelech. The more I'm looking at it, it's like these worthless and reckless fellows following Abimelech. It it really kind of paints Abimelech as worthless and reckless himself. Like
yeah.
that's that's why they were following him. He's just he's just. I mean, you hate to say that about someone, but he's just as worthless, just as reckless. Definitely as reckless. But just man, tough time.
Yeah.
And I guess like the one just another practical point as time progresses, we just see that it's a repeating cycle. The more people lean to their own understanding, the more people think they know what's right, apart from what
Mhm.
God says is right. Like you get these just outrageous actions, and but in people's minds they're justified. Like, no, I mean it only made sense. Like
Yeah.
if I get rid of my competition, then it just made sense. But
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, if there's nothing else, we appreciate you joining us again for another Monday. We welcome your comments. Love to see what you see your thoughts on these first 6 verses. And if God says the same, we'll be back next Monday with more Monday Morning High Five, continuing to read the story of Abimelech and all that goes down. Oh, Abimelech. we'll, we'll continue the story. The cautionary tale of Abimelech. Don't be like Abimelech. But yeah, we appreciate you. Anything else, Rich?
Nah, that's pretty much it.
All right. All right. Well, you all have a great rest of your Monday.